That's one of the most energy efficient buildings of any age.
The capsule can go much, much faster with very little energy.
These are the top 10 ways to save the world. Greenhouse gas emissions clog the atmosphere, trapping the sun's heat.
We didn't have this kind of carbon in the atmosphere until the beginning of the Industrial Revolution.
Our Earth has been steadily warming over the past several decades. We need to be concerned about this warming because it's melting ice, sea levels are rising, and weather patterns are changing.
Rising temperature is a global discussion.
If you're not alarmed by what could be ahead for humanity in this century, you're probably not paying attention.
But there are solutions already at hand. And Dr. Catherine Wilkinson, senior writer at Project Drawdown, is highlighting the work being done around the world.
When you're confronted with the science, it can be really easy to think it's game over. But what we wanted to investigate was whether or not we actually should be saying game on.
Fossil fuels create pollution. Replace them with cleaner energy sources, and we could reduce carbon levels. At number 10, alternative fuels.
So when you burn a fossil fuel, it's the carbon that was inside an ancient plant or an ancient animal, and that carbon was trapped inside the earth. But now you're releasing it to the atmosphere, so when you release that carbon, you're doing what the earth didn't want you to do.
Gasoline and diesel fuel have been a staple of transportation since the late 19th century. But have they had their day?
We need alternate options to provide sources of energy with a lower CO2 footprint. Biofuels is a way to do that.
Biofuels are important because they offer us alternatives to traditional fuels that have lower emissions associated with them.
These biofuels are being researched by oil giant ExxonMobil and scientists at Synthetic Genomics.
So biofuels, as the name implies, are simply fuels made from biomass. And a simple thing to think of is a log. That's sort of the original biofuel. You burn the log to get heat.
Exxon hopes to find a sustainable resource that's also eco-friendly. One surprising biofuel that ticks that box is algae.
Algae biofuels, we estimate, have about 50% lower greenhouse gas emissions than traditional fuels.
Algae can be harvested many times a year, potentially creating a prolific energy supply.
Algae are fast-growing. They can grow in just about any climate. They can grow to the quantities we need to be able to convert to the scale of fuel we want.
We estimate algae could be about 2,000 gallons of bio-oil per acre in 1 year.
In 2016, alternative fuel made not from algae, but from surplus forest material, was used for the first time on a U.S. commercial flight.
The material that's in these piles behind me is material that was left behind after our conventional timber harvest took place. Historically, that material would either be left scattered across the site or basically piled up.
This tree slash was turned into biojet fuel, then blended with traditional jet fuel for an Alaska Airlines flight from Seattle to Washington, D.C.
Alaska Airlines' interest in the biofuel industry stems from global goals around sustainability and reducing greenhouse gas and carbon emissions associated with aviation. Key to achieving those goals is the introduction of a commercial supply of aviation biofuels by the year 2050.
It's estimated that if a fifth of Alaska Airlines flights from its hub in Seattle used alternative fuel, the reduction in greenhouse gases would be like taking 30,000 vehicles off the road for a year. Next, building a better future starts with a good foundation. At number 9 on our list, materials. Across the globe, concrete and steel dominate city skylines.
Concrete and steel are incredibly energy-intensive products. If you look at those two together, they're about 10% of the world's emissions annually.
But Portland, Oregon has a greener vision. The nation's first high-rise wooden apartment building.
This wood is very, very strong. It's not like the wood that's on the table that you have in your kitchen. It is very strong. It's almost as strong as steel.
The 12-story building, called Framework, will be a state-of-the-art construction using glulam, which is a high-tech blend of wood and glue and cross-laminated timber, known as CLT.
They are really incredibly engineered products. And conventional wisdom would tell us that wood is a terrible idea because of fire. It actually turns out that these products are more fire resistant than concrete and steel.
It can also withstand earthquakes and is lighter than traditional materials, making it the perfect alternative.
If you can swap out steel and concrete for wood, you're going to be able to reduce the carbon footprint of a building by about 3/4.
Globally, concrete is the second most used industrial material after water, but a key component, cement, creates significant pollution.
Cement is the binder that holds concrete together.
To create cement, you've got to decarbonize limestone in giant, super hot kilns. And in the process, that creates 60% or more of the emissions that cement is responsible for. Just cement itself is responsible for 5 to 6% of our annual greenhouse gas emissions.
But one New Jersey company is lowering emissions. Solidia Technology produces a low limestone cement that requires less firing, but allows concrete manufacturers to use existing production technology.
They just use the same raw materials, a little bit different recipe, and we're actually able to reduce their CO2 output by 30% and the amount of energy that they use by 30%.
Solidia cement is best suited for creating preformed blocks and pavers. That's because unlike traditional cement that needs water to cure or harden, Solidia uses an infamous greenhouse gas.
It actually will only cure with CO2. So for every ton of cement that gets used, we actually consume about 300 kilograms of CO2 that's permanently converted and won't ever come out again.
If widely adopted, the new process could reduce the carbon footprint of concrete by 70% and cut the industry's water consumption by 80%. Up ahead, a historic American icon becomes a modern example of energy efficiency.
What we can do here, we can do anywhere.
And later, we're off to Hawaii to examine the energy-producing potential of waves.
If you were to capture all the motion of the waves, you would be able to power 2 Earths.
Sometimes the path you're on.
To Ted Kennedy in the White House in '72.
Isn't always the path you choose.
What's stopping you from making that choice yourself?
What have I done?
Teddy, I'd like to speak with you right now.
Don't be rude, Joey. We just sat down.
It's a matter of some importance.
Chief, we got a body.
Secrets can be the difference between guilt and innocence. So we need to be in control of them.
You've been diagnosed with a concussion.
I haven't examined the patient yet.
Could have had her out of that car in 25 minutes if I got the call.
A story like this could dominate the headlines for weeks.
It is my political future here at stake.
These theatrics are not going to hold up in a court of law.
Moses had a temper. Peter betrayed Jesus. I have Chappaquiddick.
Chappaquiddick, rated PG-13, in theaters tomorrow.
Known for its perfect storm of tiny bubbles, it has long been called the champagne of beers.
If you've got the time.
Welcome to the High Life.